Actually, Michelle is ill, so Janet will be presenting all three projects.
All right, well, please send our best wishes to Michelle.
We will.
And thank you. So why don't we start off, let me see, first on my agenda is Rev 4, is that correct?
Yeah.
Something?
Yes. And there
Rev 4
should,
Recovery Center?
correct, and there should be Jonathan Cohen and Avram Schick in the city with you guys?
Yep, they're here.
Okay. All right, so this is application 2018-083, and RevCore Recovery Center of Manhattan is requesting OASIS approval for a change in ownership to add 2 additional shareholders to the 1 current shareholder, Mr. Avram Schick. Mr. Schick currently holds 100% of the shares. The proposed action is to add Mr. Sam Weisner, who will acquire 50% of the shares, and Mr. Mir Brody, who will acquire 18% of the shares. Avram Schick will own 32% of the shares. Avram Schick will remain as the CEO. RevCore became established to provide OASIS certified services in 2015 when it acquired New York Center for Addiction Treatment Services. RevCore is certified to provide Part 822 outpatient treatment services in Manhattan and Jackson Heights. No changes will be made to staffing, programming, or the operating budget. Policies and procedures had been previously reviewed and accepted by OASIS. Both the LGU and the OASIS Regional Office are in support of the change in ownership. Community Board 2 was notified in May of this year, and they have no objections. The most recent regulatory compliance reviews of both of the outpatient programs resulted in substantial compliance scores, 3-year term, in which the applicant received 3-year operating certificates. A fiscal viability review was conducted in August 2018 and determined that RevCore is financially viable. The recommendation by OASIS is to approve the proposed action for a change in ownership from 1 shareholder to 3.
You mentioned that the last time fiscal viability was looked at was over a year ago?
Yes. We generally revisit them once a year, and it's based on the expiration of a current OPCERT, so it may be it's just not time yet.
Okay, so you do it by operations, not by, the change in ownership would not trigger a...
No, because it would, what we do is we have an expiration date, so the fiscal viability is only good till a certain date, and it was still active.
Okay, we can ask whatever questions you may have. Another question I have, I just noticed it, I know we chatted earlier, but in the local government unit review report, it says that in their summary, we're changing ownership status from 2 to 1, which would appear not to be what we're doing.
We're not.
Right, so did the local government unit know what it was doing when they suggested that this is a good idea?
That is a good question. I am not 100% sure that. I can double check with them.
Okay. Yeah, and could you explain to me what an allocated provider is? Something I probably should really know, but don't.
Allocated provider?
Funded through the county.
Funded through the county.
As in this is not an allocated provider?
Right, so they're not funded.
Okay. They're not receiving direct financial support?
They're not receiving any OASIS funding.
Right. Right, again, Medicaid, yep. All right. So, the applicants here, why don't you guys come up to the table, if you don't mind, and just introduce yourselves, because I suspect,
Morning, Avram Schick, Redford Recovery Center. Jonathan Cohen, Redford Recovery Center. Just related to the LPU question about the confusion about there's a follow-up email from Janet that was part of the packet that we corrected that, what was on the application, so that 1A to summary of her, the pre-application, so that it reflects the LGU sign-off by email, the accurate version. Yeah, it's there. It should be in the package.
okay.
Thank you, Avram. Michelle would have known that, Dr. Martin.
Yeah, no, right, exactly.
Yeah, she asked me to get that, so.
Yeah. So it was noticed and correct. We get a really appreciate it. All right, so, no change, no changing. All right, and so you, up and down, you've been so long, and you're also the clinical head.
I'm not the clinical head, I'm the chief executive officer. I don't direct clinical services. I'm the medical director, chief executive, its own clinical director. We actually have expanded the sites that Janet referenced are two main sites. We also have two satellite sites that are one in Brooklyn and one in Upper Manhattan. Each one has its own clinical director, and there's essentially a director of clinical services that each of those clinical directors reports to, in addition to the medical.
Okay, so you're providing management, oversight, and the like, the non-clinical.
That is correct, yes.
But you do have clinical experience.
Yes, I've had a case that I didn't renew it the last time around, and I've done clinical work, and it's just a lot of work. But yeah, I've got to keep remediation side especially.
Because one of the questions I had was, because you're losing any controlling interest in this. You could be outvoted by your two partners, or one partner, I think is going to. So I was just concerned that if you guys fall out and then you take your marbles and go elsewhere, or you're ordered to, do we have enough experience left? Well, you'd have to come and let us know.
Right, we'd have to get your approval. Just to speak to that, sort of scenario.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. Firstly, I'm the managing partner. I have overall pretty much, probably 85% control. There are only certain elements in which that would have to be put to a vote, where I could be, essentially, vetoed, so to speak, in terms of decisions that are made. So certain expenses, over a certain amount of money, I think it's under $50,000, but not on the clinical side, and not, for the most part, not on the operational side. Certainly, if there was, God forbid, some sort of, a negative event, bad audit, whatever, that was serious enough, then there are, the operating agreement, deals with that. But by and large, I've got, the same operating control as I had at 100% ownership. And then to your point, anything we were going to change, we'd have to come to the council anyway. So, and then to speak to the two individuals' experience, Mr. Weisner is an owner and operator of an addiction treatment facility in New Jersey, currently an outpatient treatment facility in North Amboy. So he's got some experience in terms of the operations side, no clinical experience for sure. And Mr. Brody is the executive director of a fairly large, federally qualified health center. Not related, obviously, to this RevCore action at all, but he's got some really good experience on the medical side, the primary care side, and has integrated mental health services as well. So he's got some really good experience.
So we're bringing in two people who should know their way around, not
Yes.
specifically here, but in general.
Yes, sir.
And just the financials they were looked at last year. Has there been any substantive change to your financial position?
No, we're really strong, and in fact, the reason for this action is because when I did the original transaction, the purchase of NICAS, Webcast borrowed money from these two individuals, Mr. Brody and Weisner, and now looking to convert some of the debt to equity so that we recapitalize a little bit and continue to expand what we're doing. So it's really a function of operational, cash flow, well, not cash flow, but just some operational capital, for reinvestment purposes. So it just made a lot of sense. But our financials are strong and always positive. So.
Yeah. So they weren't completely powerless before.
Correct. That is the case. Yes. Personally. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but personally, certainly dead.
Yeah, it's a negative.
That's right.
Okay. All right. I've been talking way too much. Any committee members with any questions?
No.
Yeah,
Please.
very quickly. I don't think it's germane to the actual problem. Where exactly actually located?
Who is evacuating?
She left already.
She's already out.
The 1022 trolley.
All right. Okay. So Coach Drew.
We're on 74th Street, off of what address? Off of between Roosevelt and
Right at the hub of the...
right at the hub. Right at the hub. Great site in terms of accessibility.
So you're primarily Medicaid private insurance?
Primarily Medicaid managed care, yeah, we do some private insurance, but primarily, I'd say 98, at the Jackson Heights location, probably 97% Medicaid managed care.
You have expertise. Not gambling, it's just gambling, but I mean, I guess we treatment of fucking.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. Not much expertise.
Do you integrate gambling services?
We do. So the way we do that is through the credentialing BHSAC with the GWIS, so we've got specific staff that are heavily additional credentialed for gambling treatment. So that's how we incorporate that. It's not a standalone track. Primarily, it's a function of the volume. We just don't have that. We have the project needs.
Medication assisted treatment.
Very much focused on medication assisted treatment and access. So we've got everyday walk-in areas. We've got essentially, between all of our sites, we've got 2 FTEs throughout our site. So there's not a site that doesn't have, or 2, or 1.5 sites have another professional all day that, providing medication treatment and access to medication, so patient assessment. So that's a long way to say yes.
Thank you.
And I assume that's,
Sorry.
right.
I took your lead, I'm sorry.
That's reasonably informed. And you do both youth and
Yes, well, not methadone. We don't do methadone. We're not doing methadone.
That's right. Separate, right?
Yes.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, so just to recap, we're changing ownership. The 2 guys who already had control, at least in the control sense. You still maintain independence for running through the day-to-day operations that you have now. You actually don't do the clinical oversight as medical directors at each one of the sites. There's no change in anything contemplated, and your finances are no worse than they were last year, and might be better. And with this move, they certainly will be if you get the right types of debt. All right, and the LGU thing will assume was taken care of, and Michelle, we can hear you from wherever she is. Yeah, it's fine.
We heard that too.
Okay, so the motion will be to approve. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of giving a favorable recommendation to the full committee later this afternoon, please indicate it in some fashion.
Aye.
That sounds like a unanimous recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, and as you said, the committee will do the voting and the commission will do the decision. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Number 2 is another change in ownership, Success Counseling Services, Inc.
Correct. And there should,
Yes, they're here. They're coming to the table as we speak.
okay, great. Okay, so this is project number 2019-043. Success Counseling is requesting OASIS approval for a change in ownership of their Part 822 outpatient treatment service located in the Bronx. Success Counseling is currently owned by Larry and Lisa Fruit, each owning 50% of the shares. The change.
I realized I forgot to do something. You guys introduce yourselves.
My name is Larry Fruit.
As my guest.
The executive director.
And I'm Lisa Fruit.
My name is Christopher Utz. I'm a representative of the shareholders.
Got it. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. The change in ownership will add an additional 4 owners who collectively will own 90% of the shares. Larry Fruit will retain 10% of the shares, and Lisa will no longer hold any percentage of shares. Larry will remain in his current position of executive director to oversee the daily operation of the treatment service, as none of the 4 additional stockholders have chemical dependence treatment experience or management. He will remain in that position until an experienced individual is hired to assume his role. The applicant submitted a signed and dated letter of agreement on July 29, 2019, that included language that the transfer of 10% or more of the seller's stock is subject to the approval of OASIS, which is acceptable to our counsel's office. The applicant notified Community Board of the change in corporate shareholders, in which the Community Board had no objection. The Certification Bureau received the LGU recommendation on September 5th, signed by Ms. Gail Goldstein recommending approval. The New York City Regional Office submitted their recommendation to approve on September 13th, 2019. The most recent regulatory compliance review of the Part 822 outpatient chemical dependence service was conducted in January 2019 and resulted in substantial compliance, in which they received a 3-year operating certificate. There will be no changes to staffing, programming, or the operating budget, and OASIS recommendation is to approve the change in stockholders.
Thank you. So once again, it's a transfer of ownership. It's got nothing to do with the program services being provided, footprint, or anything else. This is a little bit different. All right, so you're out of the picture altogether going forward. You're in the picture at 10%, but you're still sort of going to be running the show.
Correct.
Period. So just a question for the state. So the letter, as I understand it, would mean that if Mr. Fruit decided to unload his shares, you would need to know about it, need to be approved, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
I presume though that, so if Mr. Fruit decides just to quit as CEO, but still have ownership, you know what I mean? If he just said, to hell with this, I don't want to work anymore, but I still have ownership. Well, how would that be handled? Since he's the man with the experience, like who's obviously key,
Well,
from my perspective, for keeping it running. I just want to say, how would that be handled?
OASIS Regional Office has to approve the new executive director, so we would have knowledge if he was stepping down as executive director.
Oh, so that would be irrespective of any change in
Ownership, correct.
In ownership, okay. So if he decides he doesn't want to do this anymore, but wants to keep 10%, you would still know about it and be able to make sure the person who comes in is competent.
Correct.
Is that the plan? Because I thought I read that you were staying on until there was.
It's my intention to stay on. And I think with the description of until somebody is hired probably is not correct, until somebody can take my ownership that has the approval capacity based on
You intend
experience.
to stay, because I thought the way.
Well, I have 10% interest still, so I do really, I do. And just a word about Lisa and I choosing who stayed on. I had been in the executive director role. It didn't seem appropriate for us to have a board meeting at any time of day, I guess, as we have had in the past. So with new directors, there's some governance that we wanted to kind of clarify. So.
I would also like to clarify that the comment made about the lack of experience with the new shareholders is incorrect.
Oh, okay.
They actually do own a few behavioral centers as well as other centers around here in the New York City area, including 1,400 skilled nursing beds, which do provide behavioral, non-substance abuse aspects, but they're also shareholders in another facility in Manhattan.
So, under the question for OASIS, under the due diligence that was done and character competence and all of that, since the new owners have experience in licensed facilities, those facilities, scores and the like have been looked at, and that's part of the review that you guys did? Because we don't have any of the details. So
Yeah.
can you let us know?
I can find that out from Michelle and let you know. I don't have that information here, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, I think that we'll figure out what we're going to do that in a minute, but then I'm guessing would be part of it, but it certainly would be on the OMH side, DOH side of it. I just don't remember. Okay, but irrespective of that, still nice to know. I mean, it's nice to know that they involved in a bad way with each other, but otherwise. All right, so they have some experience, at least in ownership of things that may not be directly related to addiction treatment, but certainly have behavioral health and other things involved. Got it. Okay. But I'm still, I'm just thinking the worst.
No,
I assume that's your intention.
Yes.
But if the 4 guys with 90%, I assume they have the ability to remove you from the position. They don't have to follow the rules or anything, so we're potential. But I just want to make sure that how that would handle that as well.
I guess just with the OASIS approval, I think that's kind of my, not that I'm worried anyway, but there are some steps to go through before I would, could disappear, I guess. Okay.
Right. And honestly, at this point, I'm less concerned about your ownership disappearing as your leadership.
Yes.
Yes. I know they're linked, but, and again, what we've done this happen.
Yes.
Right, okay. We have common interests, actually.
Yes, yes.
Okay, other committee members, any questions, concerns, thoughts?
Ryan, how large is the agency? How many units of service?
We're approximately 18,000 units of service. We're a single location at this point in time. Lisa and I have had ownership of Success Counseling since 2008. So we've been in the Ogden Avenue location since that time, and the agency's grown. It's an active census of about 200 individuals, and that's where those units come from.
Thank you.
Is there another building, in the pipeline?
There is,
Yes,
it's
yes.
waiting for a certificate of occupancy issue, and Michelle has handled that as well. I would like to say thank you to Michelle, even though she's not here today. She really held our hand through this and made a smooth process. But and that location is right down the street from our current one, has community board approval, and it'll help. We see a positive impact of that services.
So as a boy from Queens, when you come to Rock and Avenue, just
We're one block from Yankee Stadium, so up the hill,
Yeah.
High Bridge, right in the heart of High Bridge. So.
I won't talk about it.
That's okay.
Exactly, but as a landmark, it's fine. It's perfectly. And now they play soccer there, so I've actually got a couple of times.
I could have used that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? All right, so once again, violating all rules of Robert's Rules, I'll make the motion favorably to, again, give a favorable recommendation to the committee when it meets later this afternoon. Any further discussion? If not, the motion is to approve. All those in favor, please indicate it.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? Since there are only 4 of us in the room, that was the right answer. Okay, so we will pass along our recommendation later.
Thank you.
Committee will vote. Commissioner decides.
Thank you. Thanks
All right, thank you for coming in. And next on the hit parade, number 3. This involves money.
Yes.
That's all, they did, it's about money, that's all I noticed. All right, so this is the Villa of Hope.
Correct.
in Rockville.
Correct.
All right, so
And
what-
we should have corporate individuals, Sarah Waleed and Kim Sadwick in the western location. I don't know if that's Buffalo or probably Rochester.
Not working. We are here.
Okay, you are there. Great. Okay, so,
You can still hear us.
all right, so this is,
All right, fine, so what we'll do is the same kind of thing, we'll do the presentation preferably without me interrupting, and then we'll ask questions, it'll be obvious where we're directing them to. Okay,
Okay.
please respond.
okay.
All right, let her.
All right, this is application 2019-017. Villa of Hope was awarded $4,117,000 in funding via an OASIS RFA process to establish Part 816 withdrawal and stabilization services in Monroe County. The capital project is for construction of an 8,725 square foot, 18-bed facility on their Dewey Avenue, Rochester campus, which currently consists of 2 OASIS certified programs, a 14-bed, Part 817 residential rehabilitation service for youth, and a Part 822 outpatient chemical dependency treatment service. This will be a 1-story building consisting of resident bedrooms, a kitchen and dining area, and various program areas. Also included in the proposal is the construction of a parking lot, creation of storm water catchment area, and utility work. Services will include medically supervised inpatient withdrawal and stabilization, medication-assisted treatment, and evaluation for psychiatric assessment, psychiatric medication management, and psychiatric crisis intervention with referral as appropriate. Villa of Hope will provide individual counseling, group, family counseling, stress management, relapse prevention, and aftercare counseling. Voc Ed, as well as chemical dependency education, will be provided. Referrals will be made by other outpatient providers, residential providers, hospitals, open access drop-in centers, and self-referrals. Typical length of stay will be 3 to 5 days for individuals who are 16 years of age or older and are experiencing mild to moderate withdrawal. The program will operate 24/7. Patients will be evaluated within 24 hours and will be evaluated by the medical doctor or nurse practitioner. The program will be located on the Villa of Hope's campus, where they have an entire medical department with access to nurses and nurse practitioners. Individuals requiring severe medical attention will be transferred by ambulance to Rochester Regional Health or Strong Memorial. They will collaborate with certified outpatient clinics and residential programs for a continuum of care. All medical and clinical staff will be trained in evidence-based motivational interviewing, person-centered treatment, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, and the sanctuary model. The lack of beds for this level of care results in residents currently traveling outside of Monroe County for treatment. Addressing need, Delhi Rise, an evaluation open access center, conducted approximately 100 assessments last month, and 36 of those individuals needed detox services. The wait to get into detox services is approximately 7 days or more. The local Helio Detox Center has to turn people away every morning when they show up for admission, resulting in patients going out of state to Pennsylvania for treatment. In 2016, there were 169 deaths within the county due solely to heroin, opioids, fentanyl, and other related substances. In January 2016 through November 2017, 5,117 county residents received outpatient and residential detox services. And of those, 1,650, 32%, received these services outside of Monroe County. 2018 Monroe County overdoses, 1,133, and of that, 166 were fatalities. From January of 19 to September of 19, there were 642 overdoses with 97 fatalities. The LGU, Kelly Wilmot, submitted her recommendation to approve on August 19, 2019, and the Western Regional Office submitted their recommendation on August 27, also recommending approval. Villa of Hope provides OMH services as well, 3 programs, all of which are in good standing. A fiscal viability determination was completed and determined that the Villa of Hope current and overall financial position is viable. The operating budget identified $2,303,200 in expenses and $1,770,000 in revenue. Oasis will deficit fund $533,200. Staffing includes 1 FTE intake coordinator, 5 FTE RNs, 3 FTE LPNs, 3 FTE counselors, 4 FTE counselor assistants, 2 FTE peer monitor or peer mentors, a 0.5 FTE nurse practitioner / medical doctor, 0.25 psychiatric nurse practitioner, 0.5 director, and 1 FTE nurse manager / health coordinator. OASIS recommendation is to approve the proposed action with 4 contingencies: proof of the hiring of the staff, OASIS final inspection of the completed facility, a certificate of occupancy, and OASIS approval of the detox protocols. That's it.
Thank you. All right, so let me just start. So this is actually not, this is, so I'm confused, just a trivial thing. The project address is in Rochester, but Greece spoke up. What's Greece got to do with it?
Town of Greece.
This code is Rochester, New York. Greece is a small business, it's a diverse community, but the zip code came Rochester, New York.
All right. I'm sorry, so you're actually physically located in Greece?
The town of Greece, which is the Rochester mailing address.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And can somebody explain, I mean, I was keeping up with all that's being offered until I heard the sanctuary model. It's just a term I'm not familiar with. Can you just give me a brief rundown?
So, sanctuary model is a trauma-informed care delivery system that we have that the stringent criteria to get certified in this model. It's not open appointment, and all of our staff are certified in the model.
Thank you. So one concern, as an old psych ER director, one concern I have is, I just think you better understand patient flow, sort of, and where, because it says there's a medical evaluation within 24 hours, which isn't extraordinarily helpful if somebody was mistriaged to you who clearly